And then we and that's Raul actually came up with the current title, which is Business Owner's Guide to Eliminating Poverty, which is a little bit different than the Optimist. I still think there's an Optimist aspect of eliminating poverty, but the Optimist is less of a theme now, right? So I don't know whether, I can answer the question if you want me to, but.
What about reframing your statement? Building and scaling a business the right way ignites blank, which in turn ignites blank, and then reframing it to fit more of the messaging about turning poverty into success, or taking
Well, what I could answer is a much more concise question: is why did you want to write this book in the first place? And that has everything to do with, again, my age and being much more reflective on how can I give back, framing the answer to that question through the eyes of my daughters, and saying what can I do to impact the world in a positive way that leaves the world in a better place than when I came here, and leave a better world for my daughters. And so when I look at issues that impact my daughters, and everybody for that matter, it's poverty and unemployment, right? And so when I think of those two issues, I always think of, why do they exist? They don't have to exist. We can solve these problems. These are not unsolvable problems. If President Kennedy in 1960 could say, I challenge the engineering community to figure out how we can put someone on the moon in the next decade, and we were able to accomplish that in 7 years. That's a much more difficult problem than solving poverty and unemployment. And we were able to solve that problem. It's because we have the will to solve it. We don't have the will to solve poverty and unemployment. That's why we haven't solved it. They're solvable problems. We just have to have the will to solve it. We have to want to solve the problems. If we want to solve it, I read, someone sent me a story, an article about a 29-year-old African-American male who's an inventor, who on his second day of life was left in a dumpster by his parents. He was found and put into the foster care system, found a family that raised him. His adoptive father developed Alzheimer's. At the age of 9, he was able to build a GPS device to insert into his father's shoe so that he could track where his father is and communicate with his father. At the age of 9. He has now something like a $150 million telecommunications company. He's 29 years old. He holds multiple patents, And I tell my daughters this all the time. It's like, everybody has to figure out how do you overcome your circumstances, because when you hear examples like that, that anything is possible. And then I also look at society. We live in the greatest country on earth, but how much greater could we be if we could cultivate that type of talent, which I know that exists all over the place. I work with a lot of young entrepreneurs, and I've seen so much talent out here. So I know that this talent exists all over the country, but it's not being cultivated the way it needs to be cultivated. And if we can cultivate this talent, train them to build, successful companies, again, we can solve poverty and unemployment. When I look at, poverty and unemployment, just when you look at the economics of, there are 43 million people living below the level of poverty in this country, the federal poverty poverty level. Federal poverty level is $24,000 for a family of 4. You know, so that in essence works out to be about $12 an hour. Now, as a single person can't live off $12 an hour, much less a family of 4. You know, and that's the federal poverty level. You know, so even barely at that level, above that level, you're still basically not, you know, you're not surviving. And there are 43 million people in this country living at or below the federal poverty level, which is, you know, about 1 out of 8 people in this country.